Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel, and today we actually have a complete settings video for you guys. I'm going to go through all of my setting preferences from, just actual core settings to sensitivity settings, and I'm even going to go through my controller settings because I do actually use the DualSense Edge controller, so it's got little back paddles on it and stuff. So yeah, we're going to go through everything. So this will be the official, HUD Showdown 1896-2025 settings update for you guys. I've been getting it asked quite a bit in some of my comments lately about, have any of my settings changed, any of my sensitivities changed, what, my preferences are. So I want to go ahead and go through it all for you today. Now, I know I'm on like a weird side of the screen today. That's obviously to avoid blocking any of the settings because I am going to kind of go through them with you guys, which is a little bit different. Normally I do like a voiceover. There still will be some voiceover in this, but we know with some gameplay to kind of showcase some of the settings. But for the most part, I'm just going to kind of go down the list with you. So obviously, whether you're PlayStation or console, you're going to go through, this little options side menu to even get to the settings. You can go through the individual tabs here if you want. We're going to go ahead and just go through game real quick. And I play on East and West. I actually bounce back and forth quite a lot. So just play on whatever you prefer, whatever your ping is best. I'm literally right in the middle. Like whenever I play on PC, it obviously shows me my actual ping, and it's literally the same latency pretty much, maybe give or take 3 or 4 ping. So I imagine it's the exact same thing on console. But I play on both, so depending on who I'm playing with, if it's better for them on one server, I'll swap. But yeah, just play wherever you have the lowest latency. Crosshair position, so that's going to be centered. We used to have the lowered crosshair like before the 1896 update. Obviously, if I know there's a lot of new players to hunt, but we actually never had this option before. If you didn't know, the crosshair actually used to be lower than the center of the screen. That's just how it was by default. Couldn't change it or nothing. So some like OGs probably, well, not probably, a lot of the OGs I know that had played for years and years all switched to centered. There's maybe like one person that I can't remember off the top of my head that I know still plays on lowered, but it feels way better on centered, so just do that. Near depth of field, so near depth of field is basically just going to kind of blur like your hand and stuff like that whenever you're aiming down sight. I'm not a fan of it. It doesn't really matter, to be honest. But I'd rather just have my whole screen be clear, so that's what I do. Motion blur, obviously it's just going to add a little bit of blur whenever you're running around and sprinting around, turning. I don't think anybody really plays with motion blur on like almost any game, but if you do, more power to you. Gamma, so my gamma settings are actually turned up quite a bit, so I'm going to be at 1.4. The only thing that I do know from PlayStation to Xbox is Xbox seems to be significantly darker just as a game. Like Hunt on the Xbox is just insanely dark. Whenever I was, chatting with a lot of Xbox people and like watching their streams and stuff, it was insane how dark it would be inside of buildings, even with their gamma cranked all the way up. So I recommend just turning it up quite a bit. You don't want things to look like too bright or too washed out for you, but just set it to something that looks good for you and isn't gonna blind you when you're in the daylight, but make sure you're not just running around in the dark the best you can. So HDR, I actually got a comment recently about what my HDR settings are. I don't know if whenever I post my videos, if anybody thinks I do any kind of visual enhancements to anything, but I actually don't have a monitor that is able to use HDR. I don't know if like I'm not super techie, so I don't expect everybody to know everything, but the HDR is actually like you have to have a monitor to be able to use the HDR settings for like your PlayStation. I'm assuming also for your Xbox, I would imagine it would work the same. But yeah, so if you have an HDR like capable monitor, I guess, you can use these different settings, but mine are all just on default because I can't change it or use it to begin with. So yeah, there's no enhancements for color or anything like that I use at all. So lowered state of field lowered state field of view and shoulder aim field of view are both going to be default. Now the best way to describe this, because I do think these are actually not on default right away, but I think one of them is at like zoom, or maybe even both of them. But if you have like one of these on zoom and one of them on default, or vice versa, basically when you're the lowered state is when you have your gun lowered and down, which you can enable, whether, well, was it the hunter scheme, it'll always be like that. And then for gunslinger, which is what I use, which we'll get into in a minute, you can actually manually put your gun down by holding triangle or Y on if you're on Xbox. So you can manually lower the gun so that you're not just holding it straight out in front of you. That's the lowered state. And the shoulder aim is when you're hip firing. So for gunslinger, if you have these on like zoom and default, you'll basically be zooming in and out while you sprint and walk, sprint and walk. It's super weird feeling. So just put it both on default. I don't know if this would be any different for anybody if you play on hunter, but I would just imagine most people have both these default. So keeping the lowered state. So basically when you, or at least for me on gunslinger, obviously you would lower the gun by holding triangle or Y if you're on Xbox. And once it's lowered, if you ADS or like just press R2 to shoot, then you'll stay in basically a hip fire state once you like let go of ADS or just after you fire from the lowered state. I personally, like, I don't even think this setting really matters, but, well, actually, I guess it would. So, like, the way it would matter, for me at least on Gunslinger, if you hip fire, you technically, like, there's a little bit of a second because you have to pull the gun away from the lowered state, then it hip fires, and then if you wouldn't obviously keep shooting, then you would put it back down. So I would rather just have it to where, it stays at a hip fire after I shoot. Yeah, I might try to, I'll pull up like a little thing showing this, but I would imagine it'd be quite clunky. I'd rather just be ready to shoot at all times with hip fire. I really just only use this when I'm like walking around and I know that I'm not going to run into teams, just because it kind of looks nicer not having the crosshair right in the middle of the screen. So that's just really the only reason why I used the lowered state to begin with. Inverted camera, vertical axis. Don't know why anybody would have this on, but if for some reason you'd like it inverted, more power to you. Miscellaneous settings. So the additional hint banners. Don't know why you would want that on. Again, it might be helpful if you're like brand new to just kind of have those little pop-ups to remind you of some of those core basics, like picking up clues and stuff like that. I can't remember exactly what they all say, but I just don't want anything popping up on my screen. If you've been playing for more than like 50 hours or so, I would imagine you'd have it off. But sensor blood effects. This is a new option. I don't think this was in the settings, the last settings video I made. So you can actually, like it says there, you can enable it and the color of blood effects get changed from red to black. Obviously, a lot of people might think it's dumb, but I do think it's cool that they're adding more stuff like this just to, help anybody that, is in that type of audience that doesn't want to, see those effects or anything. So, yeah, just, turn that off, I guess, if you're pretty queasy, don't want to see any blood. Moving on to communication, that's obviously going to be all your, in-game VoIP and stuff like that. So mute all is obviously just going to basically get rid of everything. You're not going to be able to see people in VoIP, hear people in VoIP, talk to people in VoIP, anything like that. You obviously have your voice chat volume, so you can, lower this to lower actual people's voices in VoIP if it's too loud. So if you happen to, play with randoms and you have a communicating teammate and they're just way too loud because they have a bad microphone or something like that, you can obviously turn them down here because you can't turn down anybody individually. Voice chat activation for your team, and then obviously for all, you have either continuous for either of those options, toggle, or muted. So pretty much, I feel like it's pretty self-explanatory, but toggle, I believe, is with down on the D-pad, regardless of, what platform you're on. You'll basically be able to talk to people, and like once you hit it, you'll be able to talk to people, and then when you hit it again, it'll mute you, essentially. So that, it's obviously the toggle option. Continuous, you're going to be talking to them in VoIP nonstop without being, unless you manually mute yourself through your microphone or something. And just muted, which if you have it toggled, I'm pretty sure when you go into like a game, you're always essentially muted already with the toggle option, and then you enable it. But if you want to be able to hear everybody with obviously having everything on, you can just keep that on there if you don't want to talk to anybody at all on accident. So I always like, chatting with people, so keep it on toggle. This is actually maybe a good point too. If you are brand new to Hunt and you are playing with a lot of randoms, I do highly recommend using VoIP. I've met a lot of chill people through VoIP, actually, even in quick play, just like chatting with, enemy hunters, like whoever the Wellspring is. I've actually met like 2 or 3 people that I started playing with very regularly through quick play because of that. VoIP is super fun. It's one of the like core, things that make Hunt for a lot of people. So you'll come across some bad apples here and there. I have, talked to people that have been like, oh, like as soon as they see that I go into VoIP, whether they have me muted or something like that, they're like expecting me to be an asshole for some reason, because I am like a, higher KD 6-star player, and like whether they looked at my stats before the game or whatever, and they're basically expecting me to just be an asshole, which is very sad. So don't get discouraged by anybody that is being a dickhead. They're far and few in between, and everybody should just be nice to each other, and your games are going to go better if you can communicate with your teammates, even if you guys are all technically, not the best because you're all brand new. Like, people that dodge and when they're playing with randoms is weird, but like if I have 2 brand new players, I'm going to have better odds talking to them and being nice and chatting, but also, trying to help and give them tips, than just staying muted because I don't want to talk to them because they're new and bad, and then just like complaining while muted when you have the opportunity to make their experience better by also teaching them. So that's also one thing, for the OGs around. I know I'm a little bit on a side note here, but for the OGs, if you guys have been playing for a while, or not even an OG, I feel, I've been playing for like 5 years, but if you've been playing for more than a year, or even more than like 6 months, and you're still playing consistently every day, when you play with randoms, just help people out, man. That's all. Just be nice. A lot of people are really weird on like the Facebook groups, Discord, and stuff. I think I've mentioned that before in a previous video. Like, sometimes people are weird because they want to like post clips and talk about how they killed this person and that person, and then they start having all these like personal vendettas. This is like a really common thing for console for some reason in higher KD lobbies. Everybody just be nice. So anyways, moving on. Incoming text chat. I don't even think we have text chat on console, so I don't know why this is a setting. I don't think I've ever seen this pop up in game for me. I guess maybe it's a thing, but you have to have like a keyboard hooked up to your console. That's the only thing I can think of. So, okay, so I'm loading up into an actual match, and as you can see, the like hunt pop up in the middle of the screen was translucent. And that is because of my opacity settings. I'm gonna kind of post up somewhere. Alright, this is good here. So, you can also kind of see it's translucent in the corner for the boss logo. And that has to do with my opacity settings. So, if we go to HUD, these are going to be my opacity settings. It's really nothing like too crazy. Like, obviously it doesn't really matter. It's all preference. But my compass opacity is 100, crosshairs 100, equipment's 100. Health and stamina display is also 100. The objective status, which this is also going to be when people pick up the bounty, or when you and your teammates pick up the bounty, that's going to be a part of the objective status. Indicator opacity, I'm actually not quite sure what the indicator opacity is for. For some reason, I feel like that's like what used to be the cursor that we had. It just says all overhead indicators. Or I think what this possibly is actually maybe for when there's like event points. That actually might be it. So like you'll typically have, you know, in like I'll show it on screen like an old clip, but you'll obviously have some extra stuff on the left hand side of your screen during an event and stuff like that. That actually might be what that is as well, but I'm not 100% sure actually. I don't think this changes anything at the moment though, so I could be wrong. And obviously equipment opacity is going to be your weapon wheel. That's the only thing. Auto hide ammo. I don't like to hide the ammo display personally. Like, it's kind of weird when you fully reload, it just goes away. So even if basically you can't see your reserve ammo. So I highly recommend just turning this off. Auto hide health and stamina bars I do have on because it won't go away if you are missing health. It'll only go away if you're at 150. So obviously if you don't see it on your screen, you know you're at full health. Show ping marker. Obviously you want to see people's pings, so I highly recommend keeping that on. Hide voice chat icons. I have it off because I do want to see people's icons if they're in VoIP. Obviously it lets you know if people are nearby, if they're obviously not on your team. And yeah, I obviously also want to know who's talking on my team as well. So show player names. You can hide this if you don't want to know, you know, who you're fighting, who you're going up against, who's picking up bounties, who, you know, killed you. If you really care that much, you should just try to learn to, you know, not. To be honest, there's a lot of people that have this turned off, and then, like in previous streams of, you know, with console, like I said earlier, like people really kind of get weird about it sometimes, even on PC as well. It's not just a console thing, but I do feel like it's more often than not on console. People really care about who they're going up against. Like, they get really annoyed when they die to this person, or get really crazy excited and, like, I don't know, go ballistic and have an orgasm if they fucking kill somebody that they don't like. Like, it's, I don't know. It's weird, but basically, you know, like, they'll get killed immediately and then, like, go in their settings, turn it off real quick so they can see who killed them, then turn it back on. Just leave it off if you really care that much. Or leave it off if you really care that much. Everybody's gonna kill everybody. That's what I've always said since the beginning of time. Like, Hunt's just one of those games. It just doesn't matter, man. It doesn't matter if you have a 3 KD, a 5 KD, a 2 KD, some like mid 2 KD like me and some other buddies that I've run with. I also run with a lot of people that barely have a 1 KD. I've died to plenty of people with less than a 1 KD. I've gotten farmed by people with less than 1. Everybody's gonna kill everybody in Hunt. So I know I sound like a broken record, but it really just doesn't matter. So I have it on just because I enjoy, you know, if I see friends, you know, it's kind of fun to be like, oh, hey, you know, like GG's, you know, after we have a fight and stuff like that. But don't let anything get to you. And the most important thing on this list is probably going to be the highlight interactable objects. So I've mentioned this before, but if you don't know, you have either all, none, I believe all is default, and exclude doors and windows. So everything is going to basically pulse with a very thin white outline. So that includes like melee weapons out in the world, medkits, toolboxes, the bear traps. If your teammates like place traps and stuff, I'm pretty sure those pulse as well. Obviously not enemy traps or anything like that though. But you exclude the doors and windows because they will pulse if you have it on all. But it makes it easier to peek through like shutters, the little thin, you know, cracks in the shutters, because that gap is so small, it can really be distracting when half of that gap is just highlighting and pulsing. And it's the same thing for the cracks in the doors when they're not barricaded. So like if you're at a sharp angle and you're looking through the basically like the edge of the wall or the like I don't know, the trim of the door and then the opening of the door, like when it's shut, there'll be that thin little gap. That is really useful, and peeking through little stuff like that is what really sets people apart. Because even if the idea isn't that you're gonna like, you know, completely see them, but I mean you can, But as soon as you see any kind of movement go through, you can guesstimate your shot to wall bang based off that. So this is super, super useful. Definitely turn it to just exclude doors and windows and start peeking through those more often. And moving on to audio settings, my master volume is going to be at 100. It's going to be maxed all the way out. I actually play with like my headset cranked all the way up as well. I play with this game really loud because I'm a bit of an audio whore, which I recommend trying to be one if you don't already. So play with this game as loud as possible, because is what I always refer to, like I refer back to Psycho Ghost. People in this game see with sound. Like audio is what makes Hunt different from almost any other game. I do feel like it's not as good as it used to be, like back in like early like 2023 is probably when things were like peak, but because they've made some changes here and there to like up and down audio, and it's kind of felt a little bit off ever since. But audio is one of the best features in Hunt and why it makes it such a great game. So being able to make sure that you can hear all the tiny itty bitty sound cues, because you can hear everything in this game, from healing, swapping weapons, to crouch walking footsteps, like what people are walking on to even determine where they are. Just you can hear everything, so nothing's ever quiet. Music is pretty much all the way down. Don't ask me why it's at 5. Just I didn't completely turn it all the way off, but the music can be pretty loud. I'm pretty sure it mainly affects the lobby music. Sound effects, UI, dialogue, that's all going to be at 100, even though there's no real dialogue in this game unless you do the tutorial. Obviously, I don't want anything else to be just, 0. Dialogue subtitles, obviously you can keep those on. It's mainly just going to be for the tutorial. Mute menu ambience. So I have this off, but if there's a little bit of downtime in between some of these, just clips or when I'm talking, especially since I am in the menu right now. Actually, I'll just be quiet for a second. I don't know if you can hear it at all. There's almost like a slight hum right there. Obviously, it's just literally what it is, menu ambience. So it's just not going to be complete silence. I like the ambience, personally. Audio configuration. So mine's just my headphones. I would imagine for anybody playing Hunt, you're going to have a headset. If you don't, Hunt's going to be very difficult for you. But yeah, it should be headphones. I don't recommend playing Hunt with anything else. And then I play with Cryspatial on. A lot of people say that it's worse with it on. I think like all my buddies pretty much play with it off. I'm pretty sure I experimented with having it off, and I played with it off for a little bit. Then I started playing with it on again. I really don't know what the difference is supposed to be. It's supposed to be better, I believe, but just I don't know. I play with it on, so I still hear pretty much everything perfectly fine since I've had it back on for however many months I have. I'm pretty sure I've had it on since the last update video. So now let's get into the nitty-gritty of all my, sensitivity settings for Hunt, which are the real main controller settings that most of you guys are probably worried about. So for the control scheme, I'm going to play in the Gunslinger control scheme, and I really feel like there's no benefit to playing in the Hunter control scheme. I'm going to try to make a pretty good argument for that, because there used to be. But with all the changes they've made over the last couple years, Gunslinger has like all the benefits of what Hunter used to have, which is why people would use it. So for the most part, there's still like 1 or 2 exceptions, but basically for Gunslinger, you're always going to be walking around hip firing. So you're always going to have that crosshair up, which can be annoying for some people, but we used to not be able to hold triangle to lower the gun and put it in the lowered state, like I said earlier, but we've had that option for quite a while now, so you're able to kind of get rid of that crosshair and walk around in the lowered state with Gunslinger, which is nice. And obviously with Gunslinger, because you're normally walking around in the hipfire state, you just press L2 to ADS and R2 to shoot. That's it. With Hunter, you have to press L2 to go into the hipfire state, or what it's considered the shoulder state. So you have to press L2 to hipfire, and then once you press, or to then go into ADS while holding L2, you have to click the right stick in on controller. I don't know if it's considered R3 on Xbox. I'm actually not sure. But for PlayStation, click R3, and that puts you into the ADS state, and then you can, shoot while ADSing. I'd much rather just not have to click an extra button to get into the ADS state. That's the way I look at it. Even just that split second of having to click R3, or, while I'm aiming, I don't want to, if I have to push R3, I might accidentally like move my aim a little bit when I go to push it. I just don't want to do any of that. So I recommend it. I don't really know why you would. I know people just have that preference. My buddy Jay actually plays with the Hunter control scheme. So, and the other benefit to, I'll say the benefit to Hunter scheme is if you have a bayonet or, a riposte, you just, because you're walking around in the lowered state, all you do is you can sprint and then hold R2 to melee with the bayonet or the riposte or the claw or those other melee variants, or what is it, like the traumas and the blunt, attachments to the back of the stock and stuff. All that you can do by just holding R2, so that allows you to obviously, move your right stick and aim a lot easier and a lot more accurately than compared to Gunslinger, because on Gunslinger you have to hold R3 to cock back your bayonet or whatever, and then you still have to move with the right stick while holding it down and then release when they're in front of you. So it's a bit clunky and finicky trying to use your weapon attachments, I guess we'll kind of call it, in the gunfights. Another benefit that used to be for Hunter, but is now like normal for Gunslinger, is it was the same way with like throwable weapons. So spears, throwing axes, throwing knives, all those, again, you'd have to hold R3 to like melee with them. But they actually made a change to where you can actually just run around and hold R2 to do your melee. And basically it's kind of like a gun now, where if you want to throw the axe or the spear or the knives or anything else, you press L2 to kind of get into the throwing state, we'll call it. So, and then you press R2 to throw it. So it makes it significantly easier to melee with those now, which is extremely nice for Gunslinger. And that's pretty much a staple for me now, is using either knives or axes. I usually use throwing axes now. So, yeah, that's really really the only benefit I see to Hunter now is if you really want that convenience for like the bayonets and the ripostes. So, going to the map, obviously I have it on toggle. I don't know why you'd really want it on hold, but I toggle the map super quick on and off all the time. But if you really want to, you can put it on hold. Auto move, so this is where you can actually just like run forward without having to hold the analog stick. So you just click the left stick twice, which is the sprint button, to just keep running forward without having to do anything. It doesn't matter if you have this off, like, because the thing is, if I have it on, I'm probably just not going to use it anyway, but realistically, you should just keep this on and just kind of, for convenience, like after you wipe the lobby, you don't have to, I don't know, you just don't have to hold left stick. For auto interact, I actually really like this on, and I don't think a lot of people play with this on, but you basically just hold square or X on Xbox, and you'll be able to just interact with whatever you run by. So you don't have to like aim at it, press square, and press square for everything. Like if you go to a supply cart, like after you got into a gunfight, you're low on health or low on ammo, you can just hold square and sprint through next to the ammo boxes and pick up all 3 or 4 ammo boxes without having to just sit there and mash and square. So it's really convenient. Or for your throwing axes, your throwing knives and stuff like that, run over the body of the hive or the armored or the grunt or whatever, or the hunter, and just run by, hold square, and you'll just automatically pick up your knives, throwing axes, whatever you threw. So it's just really a convenience thing. So I really recommend putting that on and getting used to doing that. Especially Again, after a fight, if you're missing med kits, you're missing equipment, you're missing health, you're missing ammo, if you're missing everything, you can just literally just do it pretty much a 360 running through the supply cart and loot everything. Auto dark sight boost. So this is actually a new setting also that we got, I think, before the before my last video, where now when you go into dark sight, when you're holding R1, you're just in dark sight. So you're just in it, and you can see your perks that you can use, like vigilant. You'll be able to see traps and all that. You'll be able to use come on, bro. You're supposed to be a hunt YouTuber. What's the name? Shadow Leap. Shadow Leap. You can leap to other grunts to like teleport and stuff like that. Any other perks that obviously utilize dark sight, you can use all that without wasting dark sight, because before this, this wasn't an option, and you just automatically used a dark sight boost when you had a bounty. So when you had a bounty, if you just went into dark sight at all, you were using sight. So you were able to see the orange glows, and you were using up your 5 seconds of your dark sight boost no matter what. So you kind of like couldn't use any of your dark sight perks with a bounty unless you were willing to waste, or without a wasting dark sight boost with a bounty, but you wouldn't be able to use any of your like dark sight perks without wasting the dark sight boost itself, unless you were already out of dark sight boost. Hopefully that all made sense. So I'll obviously have some clips, but while you're holding R2, you also press L2 to go ahead and scan and use the dark sight boost itself to see hunters and stuff like that. So it's a really nice quality of life feature that I don't know, now that I think about it, I don't know how it took so long for us to get something like this and have like a slight rework to it. But yeah, so now you can use all your fancy dark sight perks without wasting your dark sight boost, which is really nice. Now, controller settings. This is where it's going to get nitty gritty for everybody, because this is what you guys want me to talk about and want to see. So the controller like bindings, I haven't messed with at all whatsoever. Everything, the control schemes default for the controller scheme, and I have not done any of this. I haven't messed with any of this. This is literally, I think, the first time I have ever opened this menu. That's not an exaggeration. So yeah, if you want to mess with that, you can, but I have never opened it. So, but it's there now. It used to not be there, so that is a thing now. So if you want to remap any of your buttons, you can do that. I know you can do that with the DualSense controller as well, I believe, but you can do it just in the HUD settings as well, which is nice, because if you don't have a don't want to pay for a $200 controller, or like a Scuff, or the DualSense Edge, or the Xbox Elite, or whatever it is, you don't have to. Sprinting behavior, have it as on. So if it's disabled, you have to like basically click R or L3 to stop sprinting. With this on, you can just, as soon as you let go of sprinting, you'll just stop sprinting. You don't have to worry about clicking it. So basically, if it's off, no matter what, when you're pushing the left stick, you're going to be sprinting no matter what. So, which obviously makes more noise, which is why you want more control over that. All right, aim assist. I do play with aim assist on. It really doesn't do anything unless you're two players are strafing back and forth in front of each other. Some people are going to be like, oh my god, you play with aim assist, you don't know how to aim, you can't aim, for the love of Christ, blah blah. You're not that good because you play with aim assist. It literally doesn't make that big of a difference. Like some days, yeah, you feel like you have big head mode on, and you're probably going to blame aim assist, but unless you are literally both strafing in front of each other, it doesn't do anything. So if someone's sitting, like if I am sitting still and you're running out in a field, there's no aim assist on that. That is how it works in this game right now. So just keep that in mind. Okay? Vibration off. I don't want my controller vibrating whenever, just things happen. Both of my dead zones are at 0.1. And you can control these like dead zone settings as well for the controller itself, but I have it for 0.1 in Hunt. I would probably recommend 0.1 for pretty much anybody, or you could probably get away with doing even less, depending on how bad your controllers are. A lot of my like normal PS5 controllers are getting pretty bad with stick drift actually, which is pretty disappointing, but that's another reason why I have the Edge, because you can actually replace the sticks if you can even buy them, because I do have a friend that's actually gone through like, he's gone through like, I don't know, 2 or 3 sets of the analog sticks on the Edge, and he can't even buy them anymore. My cat wants to say hi, apparently. Come here. My aim input curve is going to be linear, so you obviously have steady, exponential, and dynamic. You have a couple different ones. I'm not going to go into crazy depth about any of these, because honestly, I don't really know what the curves look like or anything like that. Or maybe I'll pop up like a little graph. I'm sure I can find a graphic explaining it. I'll just pop that on screen. But I play with linear, which means it should be pretty much straight going all the way across. And that is what I was told was pretty much the same as settings before, because if you've played on controller for a while or played on console for a while, you'll know that our settings get like reverted to default and messed up and tweaked all the time, and it gets pretty annoying. Knock on wood, hopefully that doesn't happen anytime soon. But I was told a couple of things when I was trying to figure out my settings months and months and months ago when 1896, like the update for 1896 happened. I was told that exponential was supposed to be similar. Pretty sure that wasn't true, or maybe it was, I don't know. But what I've eventually landed on was linear. This is how it was in my last settings video. I don't think any of this has changed, like any of my values or anything have changed since my last video. But yeah, so aim input curve is linear. The aim boost threshold is 90. And the aim boost threshold basically just means with your right analog stick, like mine's at 90, so when it's 90% of the way pushed all the way to the edge of the, range of motion, 90% of the way, that's when I'm gonna get my aim boost. So if you had it at like 10 or 5, something super low, as soon as you start to push that stick, you're immediately gonna get that aim boost. It's gonna, boost your aim a lot quicker. So mine's at 90, that's just what I like. This is going to be personal preference if you use your aim boost. And a vertical aim boost is actually, quite literally going to determine whether or not you get that aim boost on your vertical axis. Now I made a whole video about this. I'll put like a little card up top if you want to check it out a little bit more in depth. But basically, if you use aim boost and you don't have this on, then you're going to have this weird, like super quick, like sputtery motion whenever you go left and right, and it's gonna go slow when you go up and down, something like that. It's super fucking weird, and I don't know why this was ever something that got changed or became an option or disabled or whatever you want to call it. It really made a lot of people mad, but we have an option for it. But just keep it on if you use aim boost. If you don't use aim boost, just so you know, you can, or don't want to use it, you can just turn this aim boost threshold all the way down to 0. And then with all these other values for aim boost, strength, delay, and ramp time, you would also have all of that set to 0. Then you just won't even have aim boost in general. So that's how you technically turn it off. And then you would also turn this off, obviously, as well. So for the lowered settings, this is going to be, my horizontal axis is going to be at 1 even. My vertical axis is going to be at 0.9. My aim boost strength is going to be at 1.5. And then both of these are at 0. For the shoulder aim, it's going to be, I believe, the exact same thing. So yeah, the horizontal axis is going to be at 1. The vertical axis is going to be at 0.9. The aim boost strength is going to be at 1.5. And then the delay and ramp time for the aim boost is going to be at 0. The aim down sight settings, I do have my ADS sights input for hold. I don't want to like toggle it. I don't want to have to press the button again to get out of ADSing. And these ones are different. So my horizontal axis is going to be at 0.3. My vertical axis is going to be at 0.3. My aim boost strength is going to be at 3.2, which is a lot higher. And then my delay and my ramp time are also at 0.0. And for my scope multipliers, they're all at default. I think at one point during my last video, one of these was changed, but I never use scopes. But they're all just a default, which would be 1, basically meaning there is no multiplier. It's not going to be any slower or faster than my normal settings when I'm using a scoped weapon. And the flight settings are going to be absolute. So, you can see there, it just means that the movement applied is only horizontal. Altitude can be changed via flight up or down inputs. With the Beetles, though, it's basically, I think they changed it. It's like L1 and R1 is to make it go up and down, and then squares to explode. I know these settings for the Beetle used to actually be slightly different. But yeah, and then whatever relative movement input is applied relative to the camera. So I guess that's if you want to look up to go up or look down to go down, stuff like that. That's what relative would do. But again, with absolute, L1 and R1 is how you move up and down. So for privacy settings, this is where you can actually hide your stats. So if you don't want people, clicking on your profile, trying to figure out if you're your KD and all your, different stats. If you don't want people to know you're a newer player, basically from your stats, you can turn this on. Or if you're a higher KD player and you want to hide your stats because you just don't want people, looking at your stuff, just turn this on and nobody will be able to see any of your, statistics. And opt out of rich presence. So this one I actually wasn't quite sure, but it says that your status won't be visible. So when you actually click on people's like profiles and stuff, I believe you can actually see whether or not you're friends with them, things like that. I'm assuming that's what this is referring to. I've only noticed that when I've clicked on my friends' profiles while in parties with them. So, or whether or not they're online, I think as well. Hopefully this means at some point we're going to get actual like cross, invites with consoles from like PlayStation to Xbox, because I feel like this is a pretty minuscule setting to really even have here, to be honest. But like I said, maybe this is an indication that we're going to get that at some point this year. I'm just hoping and praying. Probably won't happen, but it would make more sense if we had an option like this to see whether people are online or offline, if we have like an actual in-game friend list to invite people. So, and then for the more settings, you're not really going to look into this too much, but you have your legal notes, like your terms of service, the credits for the game. You can redeem codes here. So like during the last event, they actually, 2 of the weekly challenges were messed up, so you couldn't actually get your event points from those challenges. So they released a code for you to actually enter in here to be able to redeem those 2,000 event points. So sometimes they do stuff like that, or they'll send you a code through email to actually get some free hunt dollars. So always keep a lookout for your email in case you get a code like that. And then mark all as seen and claim all. So this is actually, I don't think I really noticed it at all. I'll go through the settings real quick, or go through my inventory, but this, you can actually just click on this and you can get rid of all the notifications and all of, like when you get a new piece of equipment, it usually is actually marked. You can just get rid of all that stuff by clicking this setting here. It's really like out of the way though, so I didn't even know about this, but yeah, that would be your, you go into Hunter. Let's just go on this guy. And there's probably a filter somewhere around here. Actually, I don't even think there is. Field Legend, ammunition, compare, equipment, animations, skins. Yes, I mean, you don't even have like a recent filter for like stuff you've recently unlocked. But on the old UI, you actually used to have these, I think they would be up top where you would see the home, play, hunter, store. With the old UI, so I guess this is actually pretty irrelevant, but you would actually have little stars on each of the tabs for when you unlock new equipment. Like let's say for Twitch drops, for example, you would get the little crates and it would give you random equipment. That would then give you a little pop-up on all of those tabs. But So realistically, the only thing that this is going to do now is get rid of like your claim reward on the right side of the screen there for your Dark Tribute or something like that. I don't think it would really do anything else. Or maybe get rid of these view all challenges pop-ups. But you know what? I know, by the way, this little message icon with the 2 in the corner, there's no way to do anything about that. Or I believe that's only for like, that's actually just interactions in VoIP. You don't actually have messages or anything. But let's actually, like I said, see if we can. Recall is claimed. Okay, so it doesn't even get rid of that. So yeah, it's not going to do anything for you. I don't know. Or like I said, it's just going to do this claim reward and that's it maybe. So now for my controller settings themselves. So with the DualSense Edge, you can obviously remap all your buttons. You can actually change your sensitivity curves for the controller, which should like mix the curves. If you have a curve, like a certain curve for the controller and then a different curve in game, it should actually blend the two. All kinds of crazy customability there. But pretty much everything's default. This might be kind of disappointing to hear. But yeah, so if we go into the hunt profile, go to the custom buttons, you'll see at the very bottom there, all I have is circle for my left leg back button, and then the X for my right back button. So this is for jumping and crouching. That's what I use my back buttons for, because then you don't have to you typically, this is going to be kind of awkward, but you would hold your controller obviously like this, and if you wanted to crouch, you would have to take your right thumb off of the stick to press circle to crouch, or take it off to press X to jump. So what this allows me to do is I can actually use the right stick to aim while I press circle or X to jump or crouch. So I can aim while doing those actions to be able to hit jump shots, or just like adjust my aim while I'm jumping, or to adjust my aim when I'm crouching through a spot so I can, especially if you have like a shotgun, this would be a good example, and you're going through a crouch hold into a building, you'd be able to walk your aim along the edge of where you're crawling through to make sure you get the first shot on them, because you'd obviously be pretty vulnerable. It's obviously just one button, but I think it makes a massive difference personally. And the stick sensitivities are actually at 0 because it's obviously already adjusted for like in-game when I'm playing Hunt. And you can see the left stick is a default sensitivity curve, meaning it's basically linear, which is the same as Hunt. And then, well, you can see here, when I change to the right stick, it is also the same, because you can actually have different curves for when you're walking around or aiming. The triggers, you can actually change like how sensitive the left and right triggers are. Those are just like normal. Vibration intensity is off, and then I'm kind of in the way, but the trigger effect intensity is standard. I don't even think this is used in Hunt, but in some games, L2 and R2, you can actually have vibration in the triggers themselves to when you're shooting guns to make it feel just a bit more realistic. But yeah, so I had like this, for example, you can't see it, but it says sensitivity curve is quick. Actually, I'm dumb, I can actually go in here. I was testing these settings when I got my DualSense Edge, like trying to see if I can mess with these curves. So like here you can see it shows where how much the aim is changing as I push it with the right stick. And obviously I could adjust the dead zone a little bit because it's kind of measuring some movement there. God dang it, I apologize for all of this. My phone keeps going off. I usually have it on silent. But I didn't notice a difference when it came, and I don't know if it was having to do with my, was it the threshold being so high, which I think might be the factor, or if it's because of like Hunt's input curves, like don't really blend well with the controller's input curves when you start to try to mix the two. But I did a lot of experimentation and it either didn't feel good or I didn't notice a difference. So I just left them both at linear. And that's going to wrap it up for all of my HUD Showdown settings, and obviously my DualSense Edge controller settings as well. And I know that part was probably a little lackluster because there wasn't much to it except for the back buttons, but I really hope this kind of, really explained everything for you guys. I know this was a really long settings video, but I really wanted to make this and break down a lot of the settings again, because I know there's a lot of new HUD players on console, especially because all my old settings videos started blowing up when the Murder Circus event happened. The Xbox or Hunt went on Xbox Game Pass, and I literally saw all my videos spike for settings. So this will be a lot more updated for a lot of you, and obviously, again, I hope this really helps you understand pretty much why you should turn this or that on or off with a better understanding of it, so you can really know what's going to be best for you and your preferences, and why this gives you a better competitive edge versus the other thing. So please leave a like, subscribe. I appreciate all the support over here on YouTube, and you guys have been killing it. We literally just hit 900 subscribers as I'm recording this video. So thank you for all the support. If you keep coming back, again, please subscribe. We're almost at 1,000 subscribers, which is the biggest accomplishment that I'm looking forward to, and we're gonna hit that pretty quick. So again, hit it, become a part of the storm. Join my Discord as well and all my other socials. I've been getting back into streaming as well, so go follow me over on Twitch so that you don't miss any kind of live streams. You can see all the action live. And I hope you guys have a good day, and most importantly, stay safe in the bayou.